The Wisconsin Badgers take on Nebraska. And that's going to be a 5 o'clock Eastern tip-off on Thursday, January 27th, 2022. Wisconsin's minus 9.5 with the total at 147. We're 4-0 in our last 4 board member tier package picks following Tuesday's sports betting action on brockpage.com. And the good news is board members get access to all of my personal bets every day through the end of January. We're also 4-0 in our last 4 extra daily picks on that very same webpage. And the good news about our extra daily pick, well, if you sign up today, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. And the link for both of those packages is in the description section below. Now, Wisconsin successfully covered the point spread in 5 out of their last 6 ball games. Covers against the likes of Ohio State, Iowa, and Purdue during that stretch. As a matter of fact, those covers against those elite teams, they were actually outright victories. So not only did they cover those games, they won them. Now, the Badgers got the W in 7 of 8 contests this year away from their home court. Johnny Davis, he's also been tearing it up this year. He's scoring over 22 points a game along with 7 rebounds and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Brad Davison is scoring over 15 points a game himself, along with 4 boards and a couple assists as well. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, Wisconsin allows only 67 points a game when they travel. They're taking on a Nebraska team who lost their last 6 straight. And they also posted a record of just 1-11 straight up in their last 12 outings. Now, Lakes and Breidenbach are still out indefinitely. McGowan's is also questionable to play here Thursday. Now, the Cornhuskers' biggest issue this season has been their defensive play. They're giving up nearly 80 points a game. And they're amongst the worst in the nation in defensive boards. Now, total-wise, Nebraska saw their last 4 straight get over the posted total, 80% to the over in their last 10. Meanwhile, Wisconsin saw their last 8 straight all get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Wisconsin minus 9.5 in the over 147. Next ball game, it is going to be Delaware versus Towson, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. The Towson Tigers are minus 8.5 with the total at 145. Now, Towson has gone 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 ball games, and they have 16 covers on the year already. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Tigers are allowing just 65 points per contest, and they're limiting their opponents to just 40% shooting from the field. Now, offensively, Jason Gibson's draining nearly 45% of his three-pointers, 11 points a game for the guard. Meanwhile, Nick Timberlake is drilling over 40% of his 3 balls himself, and he's also averaging 13 points a game. Now, they're taking on a Delaware team who allows their opponents to make 42% of their 3 balls against them when they travel. The Blue Hens also failed to cover in their last 3 straight outings. Now, total-wise, Delaware is 70% to the over for the entire season. They also saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Towson get over the line. I'm going to lean toward the Towson Tigers, minus 8.5 in the over 145. Next matchup, it is going to be Drexel versus James Madison, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. JMU's minus 1.5 with the total at 147. Now, the Dukes have failed to cover in their last 4 straight, and they've struggled a bit with Drexel in recent meetings. Having said that, though, JMU still got the outright W in 7 out of their last 10 ball games. And these guys are actually winning 80% of their contests at home. Vadu Morse is averaging nearly 15 points a game along with a couple of boards. And almost 90% shooting from the foul line. He's been very good from the stripe. Meanwhile, Charles Fullerton is connecting on nearly 44% of his 3 balls himself. He's also averaging double-digit points a game. Now, the Dukes are averaging 79 points per contest, and they also find themselves in the top 25 in the country in offensive field goal percentage. Now, they're taking on a Drexel team who won just 3 of 9 away from home this year. Dragons are also allowing 76 points a game as the official road team, and their opponents are making 48% of their field goals against them in that same category. Now, total-wise, the Dragons saw 3 out of their last 5 get over the posted number, and those were overs against the likes of William and Mary, Northeastern, and the Delaware Blue Hens. Meanwhile, James Madison went 6-1 of the over in their last 7 themselves. I'm going to lean toward JMU minus 1.5 in the over 147. Next matchup, it is going to be Ball State versus Northern Illinois, and that's going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Ball State's minus 1 with the total at 142.5. And although Ball State is favored in this one, these guys have given up a crazy amount of points on the road this season. Now, in addition to losing 6 out of their last 7 road games, these guys have allowed 84 points a game during that span. They're taking on a Northern Illinois team who covered the number in 6 out of their last 8 ball games. And they've also done a real nice job of knocking down three-pointers at home. Keyshawn Williams is scoring 15.5 points a game. He's also draining 41% of his 3 balls. Meanwhile, Caleb Thornton, he's drilling 40% of his 3-pointers as well. He's also averaging nearly double-digit points a game. Now, total-wise, the Huskies saw their last 4 straight get over the posted number. Meanwhile, Ball State saw overs recently against Akron and Bowling Green. I'm going to lean toward Northern Illinois plus 1 in the over 142.5. Next contest, it is going to be Florida International versus Texas San Antonio, and that's going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Now, FIU's minus 3 with a total at 133.5. And as bad as the Panthers have been on the road this year, it's Texas San Antonio who's got a handful of guys on the injury report. As a matter of fact, 3 out of their top 4 scorers on the team are on that injury list right now. Now, Jordan Ivy Curry and Du Dang, they're both questionable to play on Thursday night. And Cedric Alley Jr., he's out indefinitely. I think he's out for the season due to grades. He's just academically ineligible. But anyway, that is certainly a blow to this program here. And of course, in addition to all those injury problems, these guys already have a tough time shooting the basketball. They're making only 27% of their three-pointers. And they're also shooting a piddly 38% from the field. Now, they're taking on an FIU team who's on a 2-game winning streak themselves, and they're actually limiting their competition to just 40% shooting from the field. Now, scoring-wise, Tevin Brewer is dropping nearly 40% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging 15 points a game. Meanwhile, Denver Jones is scoring a dozen points a night himself. And when it comes to the total in this one, FIU's 3-1 to the under in their last 4 ball games. Meanwhile, Texas San Antonio went 7-2 to the under in their last 9. Give me Florida International minus 3 in the under 133.5. Next contest, it is going to be Georgia State versus Louisiana. And that's going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Now, the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns are minus 5.5 with the total at 146. Now, the Cajuns have done a nice job of scoring at home this year. They're 6-2 straight up in front of their home fans. And they're also averaging 78 points a game in that very same category. Jordan Brown scores 15 points a game, along with 9 rebounds. Meanwhile, Kentrell Garnett is drilling 50% of his three-pointers. And of course, when it comes to rebounding the basketball, the Cajuns are in the top 35 in the country in offensive boards per game. They're taking on a Georgia State team who lost 6 of 7 on the road this year. And they also let their opponents make over 42% of their three-pointers against them in those ball games. Now, Georgia State also allows 78 points a game when they travel. And when it comes to the total in this one, 8 out of the Panthers' last 10 meetings with Louisiana did get over the posted number. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, the Cajuns on the other side of things, they saw overs recently against Texas State, Texas Arlington, and Arkansas State themselves. I'm going to lean toward Louisiana minus 5.5 and the over 146. Now, real quick, some books have them listed as ULL, UL Lafayette, or just Louisiana. It's all the same thing. We're talking about the same team there. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Loyola Chicago versus Southern Illinois. That's going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern start time. The Loyola Chicago Ramblers are minus 5.5 with the total at 125. And although the Ramblers have racked up 15 wins already on the season, they've really done a poor job of covering the number recently. They're just 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 ball games, and they're scoring only 69 points a game on the road. Now they're taking on an SIU team who won 7 of 9 at home this year, and they allow only 58 points a game in front of their home crowd. Now, scoring-wise, Marcus Domask is scoring 15 points a game, along with 5 boards and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Steven Verplanken is shooting 46% from beyond the arc. When it comes to the number, 3 out of the Salukis' last 4 ball games fell under the posted total. Meanwhile, Loyola Chicago, they saw unders recently against Indiana State, Vanderbilt, and this very SIU team. I'm going to lean towards Southern Illinois plus 5.5 in the under 125. Next ball game, Big Ten action. I'm talking about Ohio State versus Minnesota, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Ohio State's minus 4 with the total at 138. Now the Buckeyes continue to roll here. They're 8-2 straight up in their last 10 ball games, and they're amongst the best shooting teams in the Big Ten. As a matter of fact, the Buckeyes are in the top 25 in the country in shooting the 3-ball. And they're also making nearly 49% of their shots from the field. E.J. Liddell is drilling 40% of his 3-balls. He's also averaging nearly 20 points a game. Meanwhile, Malachi Branham is making nearly 40% of his 3-pointers himself. He's also averaging double-digit points a game. Now, when it comes to defensive play, Ohio State's in the top 25 in the country in defensive boards. And they're limiting their opponents to just 28% shooting from 3-land when they travel. They're taking on a Minnesota team who's just simply not, built for a track meet. They're averaging only 68 points a game at the Williams Arena, and they're amongst the worst in the Big Ten in home offensive rebounding. And in addition to failing to cover in 5 out of their last 7 ball games, Minnesota's also got some significant issues with their injury report right now. Curry, Lowe, Battle, and Ramberg, they're all listed as questionable for Thursday, so keep an eye on those guys. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Minnesota saw unders recently against Illinois and Green Bay. Meanwhile, 4 out of Ohio State's last 7 outings fell under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Ohio State minus 4 in the under 138. Next ball game, it is going to be Belmont versus Austin Peay. That's going to be an 8:30 Eastern start time. Belmont is minus 12.5 with the total at 146. Now, Belmont got the W in 8 out of their last 10 ball games, and they're also in the top 10 in the country in shooting from the field. Luke Smith is making nearly 41% of his 3-pointers. He's also averaging just about double-digit points a game. Meanwhile, Ben Shepard and Nick Mazinski, they're scoring 15 points a game respectively. The Bruins are averaging over 81 points a game as a team. They're taking on an Austin Peay squad who failed to cover in 9 out of their last 10 ball games. And they got the outright W just twice during that span I was just talking about. Now, the Governors are allowing over 71 points a game. When it comes to the total in this one, Austin Peay saw overs recently against Southeast Missouri State and North Florida. Meanwhile, Belmont on the other side, they saw 5 out of their last 8 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Belmont, minus 12.5 in the over 146. Next game, Cal Fullerton versus UC Davis, 9 o'clock Eastern start time. UC Davis is minus 1.5 with the total at 142. And despite being favored at home here, UC Davis has struggled to guard the 3-ball defensively this season. Meanwhile, on the other end of the court, offensively, they're scoring just 69 points per contest in front of their home fans. They're taking on a Cal Fullerton team who won their last 7 straight. And they also rank in the top 20 in the nation in defensive rebounding. Now, scoring-wise, the Titans are led by E.J. Anisike, who's averaging over 18 points a night along with 7 rebounds. Meanwhile, Damari Milstead is scoring double-digit points a game himself, along with 3 boards and a couple assists. Now, total-wise, Cal Fullerton saw unders recently with UCI, that's UC Irvine, San Diego State, and University of Pacific. Meanwhile, UC Davis has gone 6-5 to the under in their last 11 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Cal State Fullerton plus 1.5 and the under 142. Next ball game, it is going to be Cal versus UCLA. And that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. UCLA is minus 15.5 with the total at 129. And as bad as the Golden Bears have been, it's actually the Bruins of UCLA who's struggled to cover the point spread recently. Now, UCLA has gone just 2-5 against the spread in their last 7. They're actually having some difficulties defending the 3-ball at home. They're taking on a Cal team who went 60% against the number in their last 10. And they've played really tough defensively this year. As a matter of fact, the Golden Bears rank in the top 20 in the nation in points allowed per contest on the road. They're also limiting their competition to just 39% shooting from the field in that very same category. Now, scoring-wise, Jordan Shepard, he's averaging nearly 15 points a game, along with 2 boards and a couple assists. Meanwhile, Andre Kelly is scoring 13 points a night himself, along with 8 rebounds. Now, total-wise, Cal saw 3 out of their last 4 fall under the posted number. They also went 70% to the under in their last 10. Meanwhile, UCLA on the other side went 70% to the under in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Cal Golden Bears plus 15.5 and the under 129. Next ball game, it is going to be East Carolina versus Memphis, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern start time. The Memphis Tigers are minus 12.5, totals 150. And I'll tell you what, for a number this big, just keep in mind the Tigers failed to cover in their last 6 straight, and they have one of the worst ATS records in the AAC. And in addition to that, Memphis is giving up nearly 72 points per contest, and they also have a bunch of guys on the injury report right now. Now, they're taking on an ECU team who covered in 4 out of their last 6 ball games themselves, and they're also scoring nearly 73 points a game. Vance Jackson is drilling over 43% of his three-pointers. He's also scoring 11 points a game. Meanwhile, Tristan Newton is scoring over 17.5 points a night himself, along with 4 boards and 4 assists. Now, when it comes to head-to-head meetings here, the Pirates covered in 6 out of their last 10 games against Memphis. And when it comes to the total in this one, ECU saw 2 out of their last 3 fall under the line. Meanwhile, Memphis is 4-2 to the under in their last 6. Give me East Carolina plus 12.5 and the under 150. Next matchup, it is going to be Florida Atlantic versus UTEP, and that's going to be a 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. UTEP's minus 1.5 with the total at 132. Now, UTEP's on a 3-game winning streak, and they're allowing only 61 points a game at home. They're playing pretty good defensively in front of their home crowd. Now, on the other end of the court, offensively, Sully Boom is scoring 18.5 points a game, along with 3 boards and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Jarrell Satterfield's drilling a ridiculous 49% of his three-pointers. You do not want to see this guy get hot from three-land. He'll really bury you. Now, they're taking on a Florida Atlantic team who lost 5 of 6 on the road this season, and they're letting their opponents make 41% of their three-pointers against them when they travel. When it comes to the total in this one, FAU saw overs recently with Western Kentucky, Charlotte, and Marshall. Meanwhile, UTEP saw overs against Old Dominion, Southern Miss, and UAB themselves. I'm going to lean toward UTEP minus 1.5 and the under 132. Next matchup, it is going to be Purdue versus Iowa, 9 o'clock Eastern start time. Purdue is -2 with a total at 162.5. And although there's really not a whole lot to nitpick about when it comes to Purdue, they did fail to cover in 5 out of their last 8 ball games. And those were failures to cover against the likes of Indiana, Penn State, and Wisconsin. And I'll tell you this much, out of the Boilermakers' 3 losses this year, 2 of them were on the road. Now, leading scorer Jaden Ivey, he's also battling a hip injury, and he's officially listed as questionable to play. They're taking on an Iowa program who doesn't lose much at home. They're 11-1 straight up at the Carver Hawkeye Arena, and they're scoring 90 points a game in front of their home fans. Keegan Murray, he's been real fun to watch this year. He's scoring over 22.5 points a game along with 8 rebounds. Meanwhile, twin brother Chris Murray, he's drilling over 41% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging just about double-digit points a game. Now, the Hawkeyes are making nearly 50% of their shots from the field as a team. And when it comes to the total in this one, Iowa's 10-2 straight up at home this year, 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Purdue. Meanwhile, the Boilermakers on the other side of things, they saw 5 out of their last 7 get over the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Iowa +2 in the over 162.5. Next contest, it is going to be UAB versus Western Kentucky, 9 o'clock East. UAB's 5.5 totals 151. The UAB Blazers are one of the better covering ball clubs in the nation. They went 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 ball games, and they actually have 13 covers already for the entire year. UAB is also one of the better scoring teams in the country as well. They average over 81 points a night, and they've done a real nice job shooting the 3-ball. Now, Jordan Walker, he's draining 43% of his shots from downtown. Also, 17 points a night he's averaging. Meanwhile, Quan Jackson is scoring 11 points a game along with 4 rebounds. They're taking on a Western Kentucky team who lost their last 3 straight, and they struggle grabbing defensive rebounds. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Western Kentucky's 80% to the over on their home court this season. Meanwhile, UAB saw 5 out of their last 7 away from home get over the line as well. I'm going to lean toward UAB -5.5 and the over 151. Next contest, it is going to be UMKC. That's Missouri, Kansas City versus Denver, 9 o'clock Eastern start time. The Denver Pioneers are -1 with a total at 132.5. Now, Denver won their last 2 straight, and they're also 6-3 straight up on their home court this year. Pioneers are scoring 76 points a game in front of their home fans. They're also making nearly 50% of their field goals. Coben Porter's drilling nearly 43% of his 3-balls, almost double-digit points a game for the freshman. Meanwhile, KJ Hunt, he's scoring over 15 points a game himself, along with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Now, they're taking on a Kansas City team who really hasn't played great away from home this year. They've gotten the W in just 3 of 9 when traveling, and they're scoring only 62 points a game in all of their road games. Now, total-wise, 3 out of the Roos' last 4 qualifying ball games did, in fact, get over the posted number. Meanwhile, Denver, on the other side, they actually went 7-2 to the over in their last 9 themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Denver -1 and the over 132.5. All right, next ball game should actually be a good one here. I'm talking about St. Mary's versus San Francisco, 10 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The San Francisco Dons are -2 at home with a total at 125.5. Now, the Dons are 11-1 straight up at home this season, and they're limiting their competition to just 28% shooting from 3-land. They've also done a real nice job of rebounding on both ends of the court. Now, scoring-wise, Jamari Bouye is drilling 41% of his 3-pointers. He's also scoring 17 points a game. Meanwhile, Yawen Masalski is averaging over 8 rebounds a game, along with 13 points per contest. Now, San Francisco is scoring 81 points a game at home this year, and they're making 49% of their field goals on their home court. Now, the Dons are taking on a St. Mary's team who scores just 62 points a game when they travel, and they're draining only 32% of their three-pointers when they travel as well. These guys struggling offensively away from their home court. Now, total-wise, 4 out of St. Mary's last 6 ball games did get over the posted number. Meanwhile, San Francisco's gone 64% to the over on their home court. I'm going to lean towards San Francisco -2 in the over 125.5. All right, next ball game, BYU versus Santa Clara, 11 o'clock East. BYU's -2 on the road with the total at 151.5. Now, the Cougs are on a 3-game winning streak, and they also got the W in 7 out of their last 8. Now, BYU's amongst the best offensive rebounding teams in the nation. As a matter of fact, these guys are in the top 5 in the country in offensive boards on the road. Alex Barcello scoring over 16.5 points a game, along with 3 boards, 3 assists. Barcello's also shooting over 46% from three-land. Meanwhile, Tajon Lucas is averaging double-digit points a game himself, along with 2 boards and 4 assists. And I'll tell you this much, when the Cougars travel, well, they certainly shoot well from three-land. They're making almost 40% of their three-pointers away from home this year. They're taking on a Santa Clara team who lost 2 out of their last 3 themselves, and they actually gave up a considerable amount of points during that span. As a matter of fact, these guys are allowing nearly 73 points a game on their home court, and they've also struggled getting offensive rebounds at home. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, the Broncos are 10-2 to the over on their home court. They also saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with BYU get over the line. I'm going to lean toward the BYU Cougars -2 in the over 151.5. Next contest I have for you, it is going to be in the Pac-12. I'm talking about Colorado versus Washington, 11 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Colorado's -3.5 with the total at 138. Now, the Buffs won 7 out of their last 10 ball games, and they're actually doing a pretty good job of rebounding on both ends of the court. Jabari Walker's grabbing 8.5 rebounds a game for the Buffaloes. He's also the team's leading scorer with nearly 14 points a game. Meanwhile, Evan Batty's been solid from three-land this year himself. He's actually making 47% of his 3 balls. You almost hope they draw up a few more plays for Batty. Doing a good job making his shots. Really hasn't shot a ton of those 3-pointers. So, maybe they're saving them. I don't know. You kind of think you want to get the ball into Evan's hands a little bit more often there. But regardless, when it comes to defensive play, Colorado's limiting their competition to just 66 points a game. Now, they're taking on a Washington team who's amongst the worst shooting teams at home in the country. The Huskies are making only 37% of their field goals at home, and they're also shooting a pitiful 26% from three-land in that same category. The Huskies have also done a pretty poor job of rebounding offensively at home as well. When it comes to the total on this one, 3 out of Washington's last 4 fell under the line. Meanwhile, Colorado went 70% to the under in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Colorado -3.5 in the under 138. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for the video. It is going to be Stanford versus USC, 11 o'clock Eastern tip-off. USC's -10.5 with the total at 139. The Trojans are 17-2 thus far in the season, and they're one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. As a matter of fact, USC is currently in the top 3 in the nation in offensive boards per game. And they're actually led by Isaiah Mobley, who's grabbing almost 9 rebounds per contest and scores 14 points a game as well. This guy kind of does it all. Mobley's also been pretty good shooting from three-land as well. He's making 42% of his shots from beyond the arc. Mobley, big piece to this USC program here. Meanwhile, Drew Peterson, he's drilling over 44% of his three-pointers. He's also averaging 11.5 points a game. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, USC limits their competition to just 36% shooting from the field. They're taking on a Stanford club who lost 4 out of their last 5 road games, and they're averaging just 64 points per contest during that stretch. Now, the Cardinal also failed to cover in their last 3 straight ball games. And when it comes to the total in this one, Stanford did see overs against the likes of Arizona State, Oregon, and this very USC team. Meanwhile, the Trojans went 6-3 to the over in their last 9 themselves. I'm going to lean toward USC minus 10.5 and the over 139. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 4-0 in our last 4 board member tier package picks following Tuesday's sports betting action. I like Wisconsin minus 9.5 over 147. Towson minus 8.5 over 145. JMU minus 1.5 over 147. Northern Illinois plus 1 over 142 and a hook. Florida International, FIU minus 3 under 133.5. Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, University of Louisiana minus 5.5 over 146. Southern Illinois plus 5.5 under 125. Ohio State minus 4 under 138. Belmont minus 12.5 over 146. Cal State Fullerton plus 1.5 under 142. Cal Golden Bears plus 15.5 under 129. ECU East Carolina plus 12.5 under 150. UTEP Miners minus 1.5 under 132. Iowa Hawkeyes plus 2 over 162.5. UAB minus 5.5 over 151. Denver Pioneers minus 1 over 132 and a hook. San Francisco minus 2 over 125.5. BYU minus 2 over 151 and a hook. Give me Colorado minus 3.5 under 138. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are also 4-0 in our last 4 extra daily picks on brockpage.com as well. And if you want to access today's extra daily pick, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. It's way too cheap. I shouldn't even mention it to you because it's way too inexpensive. I should be charging like $299 for that. But it's $2.99. Anyway, give me USC minus 10.5 and the over 139. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up signing up for a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on brockpage.com, you are going to get access to those picks all the way through the end of January. Although I do tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you end up getting the board member tier package today, you're going to get access to all my picks. That's like the biggest perk about the board member tier is that board members get access to every single pick that I give out on that website all the way through the end of January as well. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here for the free stuff. Got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Wednesday or Thursday to you, depending on when you're watching this. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.